of all days is very much a day for white people to listen and not to speak.
249 articles in 22 days. Experts call this a witch hunt.
Bro, black people are never given grace. We are never given grace. We could go through the same thing as everybody else. The reaction is completely different. We're talking about in a country where we got in a society where we got people who have done horrendous things, and the media hasn't attacked them the way they attacked this man, bro. The society hasn't attacked them the way they attacked this man, and now it's ended up in this brother taking his life. Imagine the immense amount of pressure. Do you know, people think, fuck, I'm not censoring my words, people think suicide is an easy thing to do. People think being suicide is an easy decision to get to. Take it from me, it's fucking not. When somebody decides they're going to take their own life, you have to understand the kind of psychological pressure they must have been under, bro. Bro.
In a statement, he said, "I no longer wish to feel as though I'm living under a constant spotlight, where every aspect of my life is subject to public examination and judgment."
Professor Arday was found unresponsive at an address in Battersea, South London, on Friday afternoon. Arday resigned at Cambridge as a professor of sociology of education after allegations of plagiarism and questions about his achievements. Arday's family added that the campaign of misinformation was too much for Jason, who was a gentleman and who always wanted to see the best in everyone. Sneha Krishnan, an associate professor at Oxford University, described this as institutional murder by a system infused with anti-black racism.
Jason Arday was found dead just a few hours ago. This is how many stories the Daily Telegraph published about a young black academic in the UK accused of plagiarism, and they have made this into a massive culture war DEI story. They published 33 articles in 16 days. On some days, they published up to 4 articles. Here's a list of some of the outlets that I decided just to choose and see how many articles that they've written in the space of 2.5 weeks about a story about a young black academic who tonight has been found dead in Battersea in London. They haven't officially released the cause of death, and they've said that there's no foul play. People can make their own assumptions until the official statement comes out. But the Daily Telegraph, as I said, 33 articles. The Spectator, 30 articles in 2.5 weeks about a young black academic who's been accused of plagiarism. The Times, 41 articles. GB News, 15, but they don't publish as much written stuff. They mentioned him literally every hour on TV. Daily Mail takes the crown, 53. Of course, it's the Daily Mail. And the BBC, 15 times. Why has a story about a young black academic being accused of plagiarism, not even found guilty, from a story which originally was published by a guy on Substack who has previously been accused and actually had his relationship severed with certain organizations because he's promoted literally eugenic ideas about racial hierarchies and hereditary intelligence? That is the guy who originally broke this story on Substack that there's possible plagiarism with this young black academic in Cambridge. And we've got this. We've got non-stop back-to-back coverage, everything on every social media platform, on every TV, right-wing media outlet, centrist media outlets. I've even seen The Guardian covering this multiple times. Why did it need this much attention? Really? With everything else going on in the world, it needed this much attention, and now a guy is dead. Right now, journalists are on social media defending their journalism, talking about public interest. I've seen plagiarism stories get covered before. One-day stories, they're forgotten. Okay, they are forgotten. Tell me why we've needed 2.5 weeks of some outlets publishing up to 4 articles a day on this story. It's because they're racist. It's because they're pushing the whole, everything that's wrong with the country is because of black and brown people, immigrants, and DEI. Nothing else. The country is literally on fire this week. We're running out of water. Our crops are half the size of what they should be, and there's so much stuff going on around the world. But this story has got more coverage than all of these topics consistently. Up to 4 articles a day, The Telegraph. Up to 4 articles in a single day. Why? You know why. Jason Arday was found dead.
Here are the plain facts about the events leading up to Jason Arday's death. 2023, an academic, David Harris, raises questions about the authenticity of some of Arday's work. 2025, Jack Grove at Times Higher Education pursues his own investigation, comes up with a 63-page dossier. However, Jason Arday's lawyers intervene and he reluctantly drops the investigation. 2025-6, Liverpool John Moores University conduct their own investigation confidentially into accusations that Arday's PhD was plagiarized, and they conclude that his PhD still stands. Here's the key point. June, July 2026, 3 years after Jack Grove at Times Higher Education, Nathan Cofnas, who is a known racist, believes that black people are less intelligent. It's all out there on the internet. Publishes a long report on Substack, going after Arday in every way possible, including his personal claims. Now, as a result, late July, early August, Times, Telegraph, Guardian, 189 articles in 8 days. It's a witch hunt. It's bloodthirsty. It's overkill. Unlike what Jack Grove may have been trying to do, there is absolutely no way this can be in the public interest. It's pure malice and cruelty, and it's motivated by Nathan Cofnas' actions. After that, Cambridge opened their own investigation. Arday resigns and then later dies. Those are the plain facts. The key point is that a known racist intervened and caused an unnecessary and malicious and vindictive press campaign.
People don't actually understand that nothing was proven yet. There were 2 investigations against him. One of them cleared his name and the other one was still going. Despite him being under investigation and everything that was said against him were just allegations, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, more than 200 articles were written about him, even after he resigned. At what point is it a public interest to write about him even after his resignation? It's the fact that some of his peers still kept their jobs even after they were proven to have committed the same sin he was accused of. It's the fact that he has peers who resigned because of allegations way bigger than plagiarism, SA, and no one cared to cover that. Those people didn't even get 1% of the scrutiny that he got. It's the fact that he spoke about his mental health problems and how he was struggling, yet they kept hounding him until he died. And honestly, the most heartbreaking part is, who's going to hold those people accountable? And how are we going to make sure that what happened to him doesn't happen to someone else again? Something has to change systematically for this to be a lesson for everyone. People don't act.
Mind you, these people were found guilty of plagiarism as well, but none of them lost their jobs or got hounded by the media. Why? Because they're white. Let's face it was racism at the highest level, nothing more, nothing less. Exactly. Meghan Markle was right about the racism in the British media. Speaking of Meghan Markle, Daily Mail published an article comparing Jason Arday to Meghan Markle. Professors at Cambridge are accused of SA, but never got the scrutiny like Jason Arday did.
I do not care whether a Cambridge academic plagiarized somebody else's work. Why would I care? Because the conversation about Jason Arday is not actually about that. It's about the aesthetic, and the aesthetic of the conversation reflects the Western world's unprocessed hatred of black people and the guilt and the trauma they feel about that dating back to slavery and colonialism. Now, because they are unable to face it, because they are unable to process it, it comes out with these bizarre intellectual justifications. People claim they care about equality or meritocracy, and that's why they oppose diversity initiatives, or they claim in this instance to care about academic freedom or intellectual property. It's never, ever about that. It's about the inability to deal with a black academic with dreadlocks sitting up on a high academic throne in Cambridge, or a black president, which is where a lot of this all came out in the first place. It was like Obama forced people to look at their shadow. They couldn't handle it, so it went underground and it got nastier and more aggressive, and out comes Trump, a walking, talking shadow, an exercise in unconsciousness and grotesquerie. So that's what this conversation is actually all about, and there will be more and more cases like this until the Western world deals with its own past, its own guilt, its own trauma, and its own hatred of black people.
I want to make sure people know Jason Arday wasn't the only Cambridge professor to have resigned this year. Simon Goldhill resigned this year, not for the crime of plagiarism, but rather, the little thing of sexual assault allegations. That is why this man resigned. Have you heard about that in the news? Have you seen that covered? Bear in mind, Jason Arday was covered over 50 times by the Daily Mail, 33 times by the Telegraph, 40 plus times by the Times. I mean, when you look up Simon Goldhill, the first 4 articles are just about his work. Nothing to do with the fact he resigned in disgrace for assault allegations. That it does not come up until the 5th article on the page. And yet the man who allegedly plagiarized was the one that the media decided was needing of hounding and hounding and hounding. And if you don't know who Simon Goldhill is, then I think that says everything you need to know, that a black man accused of plagiarism gets the demonic treatment that he received while a sexual assault allegation. Again, he resigned in disgrace. Gets absolutely nothing.
This kid is Nathan Cofnas, a racist eugenicist psychopath. He's American, by the way. He believes that black people are inferior and less intelligent.
Would it shock you to learn that the person who started the witch hunt against Jason Arday is a eugenicist, and the British political media class happily went along with his claims about Jason? No, I doubt it will shock any of you, but if it does, please pay attention. This is Nathan Cofnas. He is an American academic who held a fellowship at the University of Cambridge at Emmanuel College. Now, in February 2024, Cofnas wrote a blog post defending hereditarianism and advocating for what he described as race realism. He argued that in a meritocratic system, black people would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment, and Harvard faculty would be recruited from the best of the best students, which means that the number of black professors would approach 0%. After these comments were made public, Cambridge University decided not to renew his fellowship, and he was fired by Emmanuel College. He is now at Universiteit Gent in Belgium. Now, have a listen to what Cofnas said about his own aspirations for the future.
I have the job currently, and I'm still waiting for the revolution to happen, and then it's going to take a while. Get another job. After the revolution, I'll be the head of the Department of Eugenics and Race Science at Harvard.
Yeah, that's rather concerning, isn't it? What is it about eugenicists always looking like this? Like, they've very much got a look to them, haven't they? Like, yeah, go on, buddy. Tell us who the master race is. Piss off. Now, various media outlets have had Cofnas on to discuss his claims about Jason Arday, and also published articles referencing his claims about Jason Arday. Of all the articles that have been published, very few of them reference Cofnas's views on black academics. Now, surely any journalist worth their salt who was interviewing this guy or writing an article about his claims would have seen that in their prior research and felt that that was something that needed to be brought up, because how is that not seen as a conflict of interest? This guy used to work for Cambridge University, who was let go because of his views on black academics, who has now gone after a black Cambridge professor. Surely people can see what is going on here. The British political media class should have highlighted this, but no, instead they have happily joined in on the pile-on against Jason, and now we are here. What baffles me is that in the UK, kids who sit GCSE history in year 11 are expected to be able to question and analyse the reliability and validity of a source. Now, if that is what we expect from children aged between 15 to 16 years old, then surely we should expect a same standard, if not a higher standard, from members of the British political media class when it comes to the sources that they use for their commentary. Questions need to be asked and answers need to be given.
So Cofnas believes that all we are good for is to entertain like show monkeys. Interesting. The media didn't care. They just jumped at an opportunity to show their brazen racism.
Oh, now the Spectator, who spent months mocking Jason Arday and dragging him through the mud, has now suddenly remembered he was a vulnerable human being caught in a media firestorm. Now they've remembered that after he's died. Well, better late than never to find your humanity, right? It's funny because only a week ago, he was one of their favourite exhibits. And they treated him like one. Lara Brown, who I responded to before, said confidently that the real reason Jason Arday was appointed was racist DEI ideology, and then used that to preach about meritocracy. But where is the evidence Cambridge hired Arday as some random diversity appointment? Now, I'm not getting into the plagiarism allegations or whether he embellished parts of his life. Cambridge appointed someone who was already a professor at Glasgow, had worked at Durham, published books and researched race, inequality and education. When Arday was appointed, Cambridge openly celebrated his work on representation and racial equality, and we all know how many on the right feel about that. What we don't know is how Cambridge weighed that against the rest of his academic record. Yet, right-wing outlets filled in that gap for themselves. Brown wrote, almost certainly hired him to perform an anti-racism media role. The Spectator's own editorial called that the best explanation. That's a lot of confidence for an inference. And get this, apparently Cambridge becomes institutionally corrupted when a black professor researches race and inequality, and yet the Spectator itself has proudly reported that its own contributor, James Orr, is building an intellectual pipeline from the universities into reform, while hosting Peter Thiel at Cambridge. It is funny how political influence inside a university only becomes corruption when it's politics they don't like. When they built the story around him, Arday became their sacrificial lamb for proving DEI had corrupted Cambridge. Brown and others treated him like a clown, called him a charlatan, and dismissed his work as media mediocre. When Cambridge pushed back over that smear, The Spectator sneered that this is journalism. So how far does this go beyond innocent editorial and start affecting a human being's life? Because now Arday is dead, The Spectator wants to talk about his vulnerability and how terrifying the media firestorm was and how people involved should feel ashamed. Well, maybe they should feel ashamed. Because if you're going to accuse Cambridge of using Jason Arday to make a political point about diversity, then why the hell did you use him so relentlessly? Now, I'm speaking to The Spectator directly now, the journalists and editors. You took one black academic and made his alleged failures carry your argument about DEI merit and everything you think is wrong with modern universities. But why did it take his death for you to remember the symbol you threw onto the fire was a human being?
This comes to show that whatever we do, we will never be good enough.
White people have been caught lying too. Rachel Reeves lied all over her CV. Jonathan Reynolds claimed to be a solicitor. Now, how could you make such a claim? The media did not drive those people, thankfully, to do the unthinkable. But after Professor Jason Arday stepped down because he said, "I've reached the limit to anyone can reasonably be expected to reach," the media kept going after him. Left-wing media, right-wing media. In fact, they went after him more after he resigned. They wanted more. What more do you get from someone after they resigned? Did you want him to do something to himself? When Rachel Reeves was found to have lied about her experience, did they attack the fact that she was white? No. The headline did not read, "White appointee caught lying." But for Professor Jason Arday, his skin color is all that mattered.